What's going on, y'all? So I've successfully completed my Studio One 2.5 for 2.5 months, and I'm here to give you an update about it. So overall, I think it went really well. I accomplished my goal. I learned Studio One a lot better than I had previously, and I'll say I didn't have any Pro Tools withdrawals. Everything for the most part went smoothly. I'm gonna get into some good and bad, and I'm gonna start with the good. So I'm gonna tell you what I enjoyed about it and what I noticed that I really liked that stood out to me over these last 2.5 months, and then we'll get into some issues, or I wouldn't really say issues I had, but more of a request, things that I want to see, more of complaints, I'll say. But the first thing that stood out to me is the 64-bit that Studio One is. So Pro Tools is still 32-bit, and I installed 16 gigs of RAM to go with the 4 gigs of RAM I already had in my iMac right before the end of the year. And for those who don't know, 32-bit can only see up to right at 4 gigs of RAM. So it doesn't matter if you have 100 gigs of RAM installed in your computer. If it's 32-bit, it's only going to see close to 4 gigs of RAM. So one of the first things I really noticed when I dug in with Studio One is that the 64-bit, having that 20 gigs of RAM, I really felt it working. Everything was really smooth. I was able to use a lot of plugins, and I never felt it start to bog down at all. And for those familiar with Pro Tools, those you get those errors popping up from Pro Tools telling you to remove plugins and all that. I've never got a pop-up error in Studio One. Not even, I'm sure they have some, but I have no idea what they look like. It never crashed at all. So the stability of it, everything went great on that point. Another thing that really stood out to me is the fader port integration. I got the fader port before I got Studio One, so I got the fader port to work with Pro Tools. Pro Tools controllers works off a proprietary protocol called HUI, HUI, and basically what the fader port does is it tricks Pro Tools into thinking it's a HUI controller. The fader port doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't work that well with Pro Tools. I mean, it works, but with Studio One, it works flawlessly. It's You just hook it up and it's there, and even some of the buttons on it you can't access in Pro Tools because of that. So, I mean, having the full functionality of the fader port was great during this last 2.5 months. And another thing that I liked, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like I have more headroom when I'm mixing in Studio One. I've also noticed that Studio One loads. It loads a lot quicker than Pro Tools. I'm used to, when I launch Pro Tools, I'm used to maybe switching to my browser and checking email or doing something else while I'm waiting for Pro Tools to load. But I've noticed the Studio One loads really quickly. A couple of the UI stuff that I found myself liking. One is the mixer, where the mixer is at the bottom of the screen here. I found that I prefer that over the flipping back and forth of Pro Tools. And I know you can rearrange your windows in Pro Tools for that, but I mean, for the most part, I just flip back and forth, and I'm pretty sure that's how most people use it. The inspector I found that I liked a lot. It gives you a lot of glanceable information that may not be your most important information that you need to see right away, but I found myself looking in the inspector for especially tuning stuff. I did a mix or someone wanted something screwed, and I was able to pop up the inspector and transpose it from there really quickly. So those are all the good things, the things that stood out to me. Some of the complaints I had, the biggest complaint, most of the complaints were from the IO section here. Now, what's funny is that 2.5.1 was released a few weeks ago, and one of the biggest problems I was having seems to have resolved itself since that update. I haven't read the whole change log yet to see exactly what was updated, but I did notice immediately that that issue I was having went away. And the issue was, so this is my I got a screenshot here. So this is what my normal IO layout looks like. The interface that I'm using is a RME Fireface 800, and by ADAT I've got it connected to my Lynx Aurora 8 that I use for my D to A conversion and my A to D conversion, and I also have a M-Audio Profire 2626 connected to the other set of ADAT that I use to patch in hardware gear. So I've got all my IO labeled. The problem I was having was every time I would open Studio One, it would shift my IO over. That could have been this headphones that you see at the bottom. I added that, and I never used the headphone ports on the Fireface, so I never even added it in my IO setup. If I use headphones, I use the headphone jacks on my D box. So, and that might have been because of this too. That you can see that the IO kind of skips over. That it kept shifting my IO over, and I had to keep setting it up pretty much every time that I opened Studio One. Even if I set it as a default, it didn't save it. It would shift it over, and I would have to one by one click these over into the right place, which was extremely frustrating. Another complaint that I have is that I can't reorder the IO, and I can't select more than one and move them all over at once. If that was the case, even though it slid everything over, I could grab everything at once and just slide it over 2 spaces where I needed it to be, and it would have been a lot quicker. So those are just some minor things that I hope Presonus updates in a future version of the Studio One. I don't think that's too much to ask. I was also having a problem with it not saving my Playback device, and that also fixed with 2.5.1. I haven't had that problem since. And let's see, another issue that I had, not issue, like I said, complaint, is in the when you mute an instrument track, it doesn't mute it down here in the mixer. Kind of not a big thing, but if I had a lot of tracks here, that can get annoying. And the last one was I'm not able to create a mono aux track, though I found a way around that. And the workarounds that I found that I'm used to doing in Pro Tools, the workarounds that I found in Studio One weren't, I didn't have to go a mile to get to that workaround. None of the workarounds that I did have been too difficult, so it hasn't been that big of a problem. But the mono aux tracks, when I use analog gear, for example, a mono, like a 1-channel compressor, I need a mono aux track to that I would send that through. But as I said, I found a workaround for it. I'm actually show that next week. I'm going to do a video showing all the little all the things that I've learned, whether it be like tips, tricks, or just things that I didn't even know was in Studio One until I messed around and found it out using it over these last few months. And some of them may be real minor, but I think they're cool, so I'm gonna share them. But there you go. That's how my last 2.5 or 2.5 months have been with Studio One 2.5. And I'm gonna continue to use Studio One. I don't see myself going back to Pro Tools right now. I'm gonna stick with it and keep moving. All right, I'll catch y'all next time.